Hey guys, what's going on? This is RJ Game News USA here, back today with another game review. And we're talking about Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. So if you like this kind of content, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Let's jump right into it. So Dragon Quest VII Reimagined got an 83 on Metacritic, 48 positive reviews, 4 mixed, no negative. Got a couple perfect scores. We're going to start with that. A perfect 100 from Comic Book, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is something special and one of Square Enix's boldest remakes. It acknowledges the game's classic roots while embracing modern game design, through nearly every system. It is visually stunning, emotionally resonant, mechanically deep. Gamer.no with a perfect 100 said Square Enix has created an incredibly charming world with beautiful graphics that elevate the classic way of playing role-playing games. And we have RPG Fan with a 95, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is true to the spirit of the original while sporting the best look and combat in the series. El Damask with a 95 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is the definitive version that no one expected but we really needed. 95 from PSX Brazil, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is an incredible remake of a game that, despite criticism, always deserved more attention. From the excellent gameplay with the series' traditional DNA to stupendous narrative. It's a must-play for fans of the genre. Level Up with a 95 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a remake crafted with an immersive amount of love and care. Visually, it's majestic and full of charm. The voice acting is superb. The pacing has been polished to be more fluid without sacrificing important narrative points. Console Creatures with a 90 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined delivers an exceptional game, one which excels in storytelling and personable cast. While it wasn't my favorite game in the series before the remake, it has quickly jumped into my top 3. We got Hey Poor Player with a 90. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a shining example of why this iconic series endures. Gamers RD with a 90 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined transforms the franchise's most infamous classic entry into a title much closer to what game fans want. We got the Sixth Axis with a 90, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a very, very impressive remake. 26 years after its original release, this modernized edition of the game is everything I want from an RPG. But why, though, with a 90, says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined uses modern visual and gameplay improvements to breathe new life into the classic game. It is a prime example of how to approach a remake. Alright, where were we? I had to let my cat in real quick. Atomics with a 90 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a great experience. Hexadrive has delivered a remake that all fans of the genre and the series can enjoy. Alright, we got Vandal with a 90, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is one of the most interesting projects Square Enix has undertaken in terms of bringing back some of the classics. It doesn't simply recreate the RPG we knew 25 years ago, but improves its pacing by cutting some parts. Ooh, interesting. They took some creative liberties, I see. Game Blast with a 90 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined successfully revisits a classic with great effectiveness. The episodic structure, engaging dramas, and the sense of adventure of discovery remained intact. Gaming Bolt with a 90 says by rebuilding and streamlining the classic adventure, Reimagined stands as one of the series' strongest entries. Worth Playing with a 90 says overall Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a fantastic remake that hits all the right marks. And we have 90 from PlayStation Universe, saying another swing and a hit from Square Enix and the Dragon Quest franchise. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined streamlines the entire experience and provides plenty of quality of life updates. Video Chums with an 86, saying the graphical upgrade and streamlined gameplay of Dragon Quest VII Reimagined provide a breath of fresh air that do a great job of making this classic RPG appeal to both new and familiar audiences. Gamers Heroes with an 85, saying another home run for the series. Fans of the old school JRPGs will absolutely love the new Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. We have an 85 from Games.ch, saying a successfully pimped out classic with a speed boost that may appear a little too modern for retro fans. Okay, buddy. CG Magazine with an 85 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined rectifies one of the slower entries into the long-running series with a next-gen coat of paint and pacing to match the sensibilities of contemporary JRPG enthusiasts. Dual Shockers with an 85 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined introduces new systems and quality-of-life improvements that streamline the original experience. You know, I keep hearing streamline. Good God. Anyway, Mirror Station with an 85. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is the best version of the classic JRPG by Square Enix. No shit, Sherlock. It better be. Jux Video with an 85 says with Reimagined, forget the laborious epic of the original Dragon Quest VII on PS1. More beautiful than ever with its unique aesthetic, the game offers a much more enjoyable condensed adventure. Is condensed better? Let's be honest, guys. Is condensed better? I'm just throwing that out there. EveryEye.it with an 85 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is ultimately a remake that achieves almost all of its goals. It streamlines a historically challenging experience. I swear, if I had to take shots for every time we heard streamline today in this going over these reviews, I'd be wasted. Giga with an 83, which matches the Metacritic score, says, so this is probably your most accurate review. Dragon Quest VII stands out for its calm, humane storytelling. Humane? And the remake makes this classic traditional JRPG the best way for genre fans to experience it today. Huh. Can't get over humane. Why did they put that word in there? Spazio Games with an 82. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is probably the boldest of the three remakes released by Square Enix over the past couple years. Not only because the original title had already received an excellent remaster on 3DS. Oh, I didn't even know that. But also because the changes introduced here are bold. Ario Jungus with an 82 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined represents a notable restoration effort. It significantly improves the narrative cohesion of the original title, refines its mechanics to streamline the game's pacing, and preserves the elements that made this once beloved game beloved again. Alright, so we have Games Machine with an 82 saying a more compact and aesthetically pleasing Dragon Quest VII. The redundant narrative elements of the original have been approximately trimmed. And although the plot remains quite conventional, and in some instances rather cheesy, the protagonist remains some of the best in the series. GameLiner with an 80 says Dragon Quest VII makes a triumphant return. Ah, a triumphant return. Who would have ever put that in a review ever? Has a charming JRPG with improved pacing and stronger episodic structure, even if not every story arc hits the mark. RPG Gamer with an 80 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is about new beginnings. And speaking as a relative beginner to the franchise, it is a great adventure. The artwork and character designs are just a treat, and it's always worth getting to the next island just to see what big bad resides there. Noisy Pixel with an 80 says, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined offers a bold reinterpretation of the classic JRPG, blending nostalgic structure with modern design tweaks. The revamped pacing, deep vocation system, and charming diorama-style visuals bring new life to a lengthy adventure. I'll tell you guys right now, I will not get this game simply because I can't stand diorama art style. I don't like it. Can't do it. I'd probably rather play the original. Restart Run with an 80 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a strong remake and one that does a lot to improve upon its predecessor. An RPG that revels in nostalgia and the warmness you feel after a night out with friends. Does it? Does it do that? What? It says an RPG that revels in nostalgia and the warmness you feel after a night out with friends. Are we sure? Are we sure? That's what that does for you? I mean, I don't think so at all, but okay. Final Weapon with an 80 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is still a grand adventure as it was 25 years ago. Mostly the Reimagined moniker bleeds down to the redefined art style, remixed combat mechanics, and streamlined main quest. So, okay, I'm wondering if more games are going to start calling it Reimagined instead of remaster or a remake. Because the difference between a remake and a remaster is a remaster is taking the already existing game and they're kind of like buffing up the visuals, right? And you're barely changing anything, actually. A remake, you're remaking it from the ground up and you're doing a whole bunch of changes and whatnot, and it visually looks way different or better. This is flat out, this is basically a remake. This is more of a remake than a remaster. But instead of calling it a remake, they called it a reimagining. I'm wondering if that'll help them in the sales with marketing. Screen Rant with an 80 says, if you've ever played Dragon Quest VII, then by all means check this remake out. It's not a remake, it's a reimagining. It's an epic RPG that still has my favorite job system of any game ever. Damn, that's saying something. Multiplayer.it reviewing this single-player game, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined adds a new place to the increasingly diverse universe of remakes and remasters. This time we're faced with a title particularly remade from scratch, but absolutely faithful in intent. 4P.de with an 80 seems to be the most common score, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is not a hardcore RPG. It's more like a vacation, a well-needed remake for the original. Dragon, what? Really? Is that easy? GameSurf with an 80 says Dragon Quest VII Reimagined breathes new life into a historic title. How historic is Dragon Quest VII? The series is somewhat historic. It's definitely more popular in Japan. But this ain't no fucking Final Fantasy VII walking through the door. Eurogamer Germany with an 80 says it hardly shows its age. Square Enix's Dragon Quest VII Reimagined offers charming JRPG fun in bite-sized portions. Perfect for exploring the game without having to completely immerse yourself in it. Guys, you're supposed to immerse yourself in an RPG. I hate to break it to Eurogamer Germany. Game Informer, which I thought was dead, gave it a 75, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined has just as much heart as its previous iterations, but is now also much more welcoming and modernized. The presentation is endearing, and the new gameplay mechanics, as well as a plethora of modifiers, will help new players navigate. That might be good for new players. GamePro Germany with a 75, saying Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is the most unusual remake I've ever played. In addition to beautiful modern graphics and all kinds of quality of life improvements, the JRPG features an unusual story, surprisingly shallow combat, and less content than the PS1 original. So this is what I'm talking about right here. So a lot of people praised how things were cut from the game, but that goes both ways, because now we have a reviewer that says, hey, why did this stuff get cut? Why does this have less content? You're always going to have the people that will say, hey, don't pad a game out. Keep it lean, keep it good. And you'll always have those that say, what'd you do with all this other content I liked? I tend to lean more towards the leaner side of things. Give me lean, give me clean, give me good content. And don't waste my time. But I'm telling you, there are people that think every game needs to be 100 hours. WCC Fetch with a 75. This is a guided experience from beginning to end. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined does away with any sense of exploration and challenge by holding the player's hand, whether they want the guidance or not. Ouch. Dude, how did they give this a 75? This review reads like a 5. Like, I swear to God, game reviewers give so much higher scores than movie reviewers, but their words can be so harsh. But their review's a 75. It's as average could be. It's like, dude, if you're going to go that hard in the paint on your review with the words you say, give it a score that reflects that, like a 40. You know what I mean? You just said the game holds your hand from beginning to end. If I play a game that does that for me and I don't want that, I'm giving that game a fucking 40 or lower. These reviewers don't get it. That should be a negative review because it read like a negative review. Voxel with a 75 says, despite its bloated content and drawn-out storyline, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined wins over players with its charming visuals and quality of life improvements that make the gameplay very satisfying. Again, how is that a 75? How? When you're sitting there saying it's bloated content and a drawn-out storyline, instantly, that's no higher than a 60. No matter what else you say after that. These scores don't really match the words sometimes. We got Forbes with a 70, saying overall Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a stunning rebuild of the classic PlayStation role-playing game. The pop start aspect of the short story structure is still there, but definitely improved. We're in the mixed review categories. IGN with a 70. That's huge that they gave it a 70. Well, IGN's meme. They always give it a 7, right? Dragon Quest VII got their 7 from IGN. It delivered a better paced version than the 26-year-old classic while retaining its signature charm, but it also goes too far with some of its changes, sanding down the experience for newer players at the expense of the challenge and discovery. So there's another reviewer who says, again, we're cutting content, we're making it too easy for experienced players. I had an issue with the art style, which is why I'm not buying the game. Everybody else seems to love it, even the more negative reviews. But I wasn't big on Link's Awakening art style either, like their remake of that. Metro Game Central was 70, saying a loving remake of a JRPG classic with pitch-perfect graphics. I disagree with that. And charming, if simplistic, storytelling and combat. I think this could be a good game for somebody that's like, this is their first JRPG, maybe. Or their first time getting into Dragon Quest. But we got one more review. It's a 60. It's the low score. Critical Hits says, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined attempts to modernize one of the franchise's most popular entries by revamping its visuals, refining its systems, and preserving the essence of the original, but ultimately runs into serious pacing and structural issues. And that'll be it, guys. Those are the reviews for Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. Let me know in the comments below, do you plan on buying this game? Do you plan on playing this game? And if you did, tell me if you liked it or not. I really want to know. maybe I'll pick it up on sale at some point. Anyway, this is RJ signing out. Have a good one.